J.D. Vance had something very specific to say about violence as the means to political ends after yet another leftist-inspired attack on law enforcement. That's, of course, the shooting that occurred at the Dallas ICE facility yesterday that took the life of one individual, a detainee, and critically injured two others, as the reporting indicates. No law enforcement officers hurt, but clearly they were the target based on the evidence recovered. The vice president.
But we know this person was politically motivated. They were politically motivated to go after law enforcement. They were politically motivated to go after people who are enforcing our border. And I think that is the most disgusting thing. The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happens. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
Okay, that was pointed. Something else that Vance said, though, mentioned earlier in the program, this is really important. It's not just the name calling, because the name calling has become so prosaic that I think it's discounted. Although I know that we've had some of these people that have given over to violence invoke some of the names that people are called with whom they disagree. Fascist, Nazi. But the more important thing to me, in my view, is the purposeful fabrications, the lying about what, in this case, ICE officers are doing, the assertions that they're kidnapping people, they're disappearing people, they're breaking up families, that cruelty and terror is the point of the execution of their duties, which is something Governor Pritzker has explicitly said. Incredibly true. Incredible that that's true, but it is true. And Vance had another example to those ends.
Maybe the worst of all the fake news, and I'm sure we have an NBC reporter out there. It's a tough competition, my friends, to be clear. But maybe the worst, I said maybe the worst, is NBC News. And they said that immigration enforcement, you know what they said? That immigration enforcement had detained a 5-year-old autistic girl in order to get to that girl's father. Turned out that story was a complete fabrication. It was a complete dishonest lie. But when you go around and lie about our law enforcement and you tell them that they're mistreating 5-year-old girls, what do you think is going to happen? When Democratic politicians incur doxing, when they encourage us to unmask ICE enforcement officers, what do you think is going to happen? When the mayor of Los Angeles encourages violent protesters to get in the face of our law enforcement, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen is political violence, and political violence has gotten out of control in this country. We got to stop it. We got to condemn it. And that starts, unfortunately, at the very top of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, those lies that the purveyors of agitprop tell give people with who are unstable or who have given over to evil the basis for feeling righteous in the use of political violence against these enemies, these demons incarnate that wear ICE uniforms. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volume 2. Should also get Volume 1. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
So, well, you know a lot about violence, political and otherwise. I mean, your perspective on on the political, maybe even dating back to the civil rights movement, what we can and should learn for application today?
But I think, as I look back on the experiences that I've walked through in the civil rights movement, for instance, I was just reading about how Dr. King in 1956, January 30th, when he was speaking there, the Klan firebombed his house, and his wife, Coretta, barely escaped with their 10-month-old daughter. And King rushed home, and when he got there were about 300 angry, armed black men ready to tear the city apart. Even in the presence of this kind of tragedy, King, he counseled peace. He told everyone, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword, that everyone should go home. And as a consequence, we avoided this country could have turned at that point into a series of race riots with some justification. But King, exercising a kind of moral and civic leadership, counseled against that. And he said, we must continue to pursue nonviolence, and we must pursue agape love. And the best way to destroy your enemy is make him your friend. And that was carried on with another leader that I respect, Ralph Billups. He was a pastor leader in Birmingham when he confronted Bull Connors, who ordered hoses and dogs on people and ordered his fire department to shoot demonstrators. And the firefighters unanimously disagreed, and they refused. And some with tears in their eyes said, we're not here. We have to put out fires, not kill people. So Billups was also the subject of a violent attack. But 4 Klansmen seized him from his home and beat him. Here he is as a World War II veteran with shrapnel in his head from the Korean War. He was targeted by the Klan. The members came, abducted him, used him, tied him to a tree, beat him with chains, and branded his stomach with KKK. Well, but when one of the assailants later showed up at his home offering to turn himself in, the young preacher prayed with him, and the two of them went around together to preach peace. So these are just stellar examples of people in the civil rights movement who exercise discipline, but also agape love. And when they had every justification to return violence with violence. So I just think it's important to understand that.
Right. No.
One other.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But also when we're talking about what are the solutions, I think what we need to do is turn to those who are the immediate victims of this violence. Like in Washington, D.C., when Trump brought the National Guard in, there were demonstrations, but the demonstrations were white liberals from DuPont Circle.
Yeah.
When, by contrast, low-income people in Ward 7 and 8, that's the areas of the high crime, they were partnering with the soldiers to clean up the community in a partnership to restore order, and because they are the ones suffering the problem. And so conservatives have got to find a way of changing out some of the messengers so they're not just politicians raising these issues, but giving the people suffering the problem an opportunity to speak for themselves. And that's how you undermine the moral authority of the left.
Yeah, I mean, we see some of that in Chicago with a group that's sort of grown organically called Chicago Flips Red. Now, there's a political overtone to that, clearly, but it is residents of the south and west sides of Chicago. It is them speaking in their own voices about the problems they see and what they don't see as action from their city and state government. And so, basically, it's a bunch of Democrats mugged by reality that are saying, the hell with this party. We've tried it for 100 years in the city and it's not working. So I think that, my sense is there's some utility to that, but I also think it's somewhat limited because it's particularly partisan. And I suspect you would suggest as well that the focus be on the substance of the matter and let people connect the dots to who is responsible or who has failed to act and who needs to be changed out in terms of elected officials.
Yeah, I think that, again, I don't think there's enough opportunity to turn the microphones over to the people in these communities who are suffering the problem and let them speak. For instance, defund the police. 80% of low-income blacks around this country are against defund the police. And yet liberal leaders, so-called democratic liberal leadership is for defunding the police. Destroying of the monuments and denigrating our rich heritage of, in other words, I really think we're missing an opportunity to give voice to urban patriots. These are the group in Alabama, or Shreveport, Louisiana, rather, who some of these black fathers got tired of the violence in the high school, and they spontaneously went in and called dads on duty and took over the high school. And so they began to control the behavior of their own children. These are the kind of movements, spontaneous movements, the conservatives need to get behind and support and fund and give the microphone over to some of the people suffering the problem to make the point, and not just coming from politicians.
Do you see a lot more of that sort of organic response to public safety issues in neighborhoods like the dads on duty example you just mentioned in Shreveport? Do you see a lot more of that occurring? I mean, you're much closer to it than most.
It is a lot. I spend a lot of time in these communities, and I don't hear in any of these communities assault on the values of the country. I don't see people burning Bibles and burning the flag. All of this is being done by elites who are outside. But when you go into these communities, I'll give you an example, Dan. Some years ago, when the Klan was demonstrating in a little bus of 20 tired old white men were demonstrating in D.C., there were about 3,000 people trying to tear them apart. And the Washington Post reporter went down into Ward 7, the whole high crime area, and asked a 72-year-old man if he was going to join the demonstration against the Klan. He said, bring the Klan down here if they can get rid of these drug addicts and these thugs.
Right. You're missing the,
he was no conservative.
No, you're missing the point is what he's saying. Right.
You're missing the point that they're more concerned about public safety than they are the political views of people. And we must give much more attention and give the microphones over to some of these people so they can speak for themselves. Unfortunately, Dan, there are race grievance people on the right, too. There's some people who don't want this conflict to go away either because they're profiting from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you want to give an example of who you're talking about or what you're talking about? Like the approach that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, when I see just people standing up, just talking about the opposition and what the left is doing, we need a positive strategy. You're not going to win playing defense all the time, talking about what the left is doing. Let's offer our own alternatives that address the real problems of our society.
Well, but I mean, and I know you know this, but I mean, just to voice it, I mean, but there's even if conservatives did a better job of taking your advice in terms of funding these organic movements that are occurring in the neighborhoods that have problems, public safety problems in particular, and giving them, the room to express themselves in their own way and take the leadership position. Even if that was happening, I mean, you still have things that financing can't solve going on in these neighborhoods that need to be addressed, sort of culturally, sociologically, and that's really a challenge, isn't it?
No, yeah, but what I'm talking about, is some examples of where there is moral leadership and having civic order. I just spent 2 days with the Pineywood School in Pineywood, Mississippi, a black boarding school that takes kids from some of the most challenged neighborhoods in the country. And yet 100% of them go on to college or post-secondary education, and they're living in a moral community, and they're all. So there are examples, and then there's a St. Mary's School in Louisiana. I mean, the Frederick Douglass School in Chester. There are places around the country where there is the presence of moral excellence, where there are moral communities that have been formed spontaneously by low-income people that demonstrate that these children and these communities can be redeemed from within. But you don't have conservative scholars going into these places where there has been zones of peace and writing papers about and interviewing the people who are creating these zones of peace. You don't have enough of attention to that.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's sort of like, let's replicate and scale models that are working. Let's look prospectively rather than just spending all our time responding to the latest idiocy from Jasmine Crockett or Brandon Johnson or somebody.
Exactly. That's the point. And if you want to go way back, I mean, look at the Clackham Group in England. Just 20 people coming together for 20 years ended up causing the whole country, England, to abandon slavery when it was hostile to their economic interests. So there are historic examples of how a small group who have come together in a moral conclave, and they have changed and dramatically improved their society. So there are endless examples but we don't spend enough time concentrate on how people have recovered from brokenness and giving them the opportunity to speak for themselves and act for themselves.
Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volumes 1 and 2. Bob, thank you as always. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And Bob joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that